11. Conquest. Kriegslater led them out of their quarters, down the stairs and across the main hall to the control centre, where the warlord stopped brooding before his map screens. "I have brought our guests, warlord. I thought it might amuse you to explain your plans for the final conquest of the galaxy." "Our plans, War Chief," said the warlord. "You are too modest." He looked curiously at the doctor. "This is a great pleasure, Doctor. I have been waiting a long time for a chance to meet you, and to repay my debt." "Don't think of it as a debt," said the doctor politely. "Spoiling your father's evil schemes was a pleasure." The warlord said coldly, "The basic idea of that first plan, the one you interfered with, Doctor, was, as you know, to kidnap soldiers from Earth's different time zones, set them fighting what they thought were still their own wars, and to select an elite force from the survivors. It was, to say the least, a little over-complex." "Let's be honest," said the doctor cheerfully. "It was a madman's flytrap, a dog's breakfast of a plan. It was starting to go wrong even before I turned up." "There were certain problems," admitted the warlord stiffly. "The difficulty of brainwashing and keeping brainwashed so many men, the consequent growth of resistance movements in the different time zones." "Precisely," said the doctor cheerfully. "A dog's breakfast." Ace wondered if it was wise of the doctor to annoy the warlord so much. But then again, what had they got to lose? Gritting his teeth, the warlord went on with his lecture. "However, we were still convinced that Earth was the best planet for our purpose, that the human race had the best characteristics to form our army of killers." "They're a bloodthirsty little species, all right," agreed the doctor, with a thoughtful look at Ace. "Often said so myself. So we made use of the time-scanning equipment provided by our friend the War Chief to study Earth's history, and we found all this." With a sweeping gesture, the warlord indicated the ranks of SS men, the swastika banners on the wall. "A nation, a government dedicated to the same ends as ourselves, and within that nation a chosen elite, even more dedicated than the rest. Most of our work was done for us already." The doctor nodded. "I see what you mean. Unquestioning obedience, total ruthless naked aggression. This lot are pretty well brainwashed already." "Exactly," said Kriegslater. "Do you realize, Doctor, that these men all undergo 2 years of brutal training before they are permitted to call themselves members of the SS? When we take them over, they are preconditioned. A very slight adjustment, and the process is complete." The warlord raised his voice. "You there!" One of the blonde giants doubled across the room and came to attention before them. Ace looked at him in fascination. He was a hunk all right. 6'3", stern, handsome features, close-cropped fair hair, blue eyes. Yet somehow she didn't fancy him, couldn't even think about fancying him. It was the eyes that were the problem, she thought. They were totally expressionless. The man was no longer human. As if answering her thought, the warlord said, "There is so little humanity left in them when we take them over, it is a simple matter to remove the rest." Looking up at the giant towering above him, he snapped, "Helmet! Grenade!" The man marched over to an alcove set in the tower wall next to the weapons section. At a gesture from the warlord, they all followed. They watched the man take a steel helmet from a rack and put it on, and select a grenade from a wooden crate. Then he stepped inside the alcove. A thick, transparent shield slid across the front. "Watch closely," said the warlord. He nodded to the SS man. Unbelievingly, Ace saw the man pull the pin from the grenade, balance the grenade on his helmet, and stand to attention. Seconds later there was a muffled explosion and the alcove filled with smoke. The shield slid back, the smoke cleared, and there was the SS man. The helmet was mangled by the blast, blood trickled from his nose and ears, and his face was bleeding from a deep gash in the cheek. But he still stood rigidly to attention, blue eyes staring blankly ahead. "Quite a party trick," said the doctor. Kriegslater laughed. "Believe it or not, that is a standard SS training exercise. But for us, he would do it without the helmet. Would you like to see, Doctor? I assure you he would obey." "No, no," said the doctor hurriedly. "Waste not, want not, you know." "Medical section," said the warlord, and the bleeding giant marched away. The warlord led them back to the control area. They do not fear pain or death any more, you see. Well, why should they? Said the doctor reasonably. After all, they're not really alive. And what do you plan to do with your zombie army? The warlord tapped the map. We shall rewrite Earth's history, Doctor. First, we shall ensure that Hitler wins this war. And how do you propose to do that? Adolf Hitler is a flawed genius, said Kriegsleiter. A man with great talents, and with enormous weaknesses. We have accentuated the talents by boosting the powers of oratory, asked the doctor. Quite so, but how did you know? I saw you doing it at Nuremberg. Psychic amplification, isn't it? Kriegsleiter nodded. He has an extraordinary power to arouse raw emotion in a crowd. If that power is boosted, the technology is relatively simple, as you know, the results are quite amazing. We saw, said Ace. Kriegsleiter lifted a complex-looking piece of equipment from a table. What you saw, or rather felt, was the effect of Hitler's natural powers boosted by me sitting in close range wearing this, a simple psionic amplifier. He smiled wryly. This cloak can cover more than my deformities when necessary. The warlord took up the story. We shall also correct the disastrous errors of judgment. France will be overrun just as before, but this time there will be no fatal delays in following up the victory. Britain will be swiftly overwhelmed as well. What about America? Asked the doctor. If England is conquered quickly, America will accept the fact. There is a strong isolationist party there as it is. And Russia? The treaty will be kept. There will be no attack on Russia, not yet. That was the second mistake. We consolidate our grip on the continent. We move carefully one step at a time. Asia, Africa, the Far East. We provoke war between Russia and America, so the two giants destroy each other, and we take over what remains. It'll take time, Doctor, but we shall achieve our goal, a Nazi Earth. And even that is only the first step. We shall force the pace of Earth's scientific development, atomic weapons, a star drive, a space fleet. When we are ready, we shall conquer the galaxy, said Kriegsleiter. A Nazi galaxy, said the warlord. In time, a Nazi universe. A warlord universe, said the doctor, with you lot pulling the strings. How do you plan to work it exactly? He sounds genuinely interested, thought Ace. Perhaps he is. The warlord frowned. That is not finally decided. The most obvious way was to work through the man Hitler. He has remarkable powers. He is the focal point of the whole regime. But he has become strangely unreliable, and we are finding it harder and harder to control him. We fear complete breakdown. Won't that put a crimp in your plans? Not at all. We shall simply replace him with Himmler, said Kriegsleiter. Since he already controls the SS, it'll be even simpler. And Goering? Too individualistic. He will be disposed of. And how much does Himmler know about all this? Asked Ace, gesturing around her. The brainwashing, all the high-tech stuff. Very little, said Kriegsleiter. He accepts this tower as a sort of inner sanctum and stays away. He prefers to think of our assistance as being supernatural rather than scientific. I have more to show you, Doctor. With your permission, Warlord? The Warlord nodded dismissively and went back to his map screens. Kriegsleiter led them across the hall to the staircase, which continued downwards. With a gesture, he summoned 2 SS guards to follow them. Don't even think of escape, Doctor, he said as they went down the stairs. You are in a fortress within a fortress, with guards everywhere. You have only the illusion of liberty. He paused at the vaulted doorway of a huge chamber. Our chapel, my dear, he said, giving Ace a ghastly smile. This is a side entrance. The main door is at the rear. They looked through the doorway. The huge vaulted chamber was hung with swastika flags. High-back stone seats, each decorated with carved SS insignia, were grouped in semicircles around a great stone slab of an altar. There was a swastika banner behind the altar, and a flanking pair of candle holders with huge black candles. The altar was carved with strange esoteric runes. Ace saw with horror that its surface was dark with the stains of old blood. Kriegsleiter caught the direction of her gaze. Chickens, he said. 1 or 2 cats, the odd lamb. Tomorrow will be our first attempt at the real thing, so to speak. Since the war has finally begun, I felt something more impressive was in order. We were going to use one of our young SS men, but you arrived so opportunely. Yeah, just my luck, said Ace. He led them from the chapel, still further downwards, to a point where the gloom of the staircase was replaced with a blaze of light. Opening a steel door, he took them into a small, brightly lit control room. There were rows of dials and switches and a glass window that looked out over a much larger area. A vast underground chamber filled with great gleaming metal tanks, linked by walkways and gantries and overhead cranes. It meant nothing to Ace, but the doctor seemed to recognise it. He looked at Kriegsleiter, genuine shock in his face. That isn't. It is indeed, Doctor, said Kriegsleiter triumphantly. A fully automated atomic reactor. When the time comes, the Führer's rockets will have nuclear warheads. The doctor was appalled. You'll destroy the planet. We'll only use them on the larger countries, said Kriegsleiter reassuringly. Russia, China, America. They're big enough to soak up a bit of radiation. And there'll be no nuclear retaliation, remember? No nuclear war as such. What makes you so sure? We shall be the only country with atomic weapons. He led them towards the door. Well, Doctor, that concludes what you are pleased to call the tour. I think you should return to your quarters and rest. A trying time awaits you. Flanked by the ever-present guards, they began climbing the stairs. Once they were back in their quarters, the doctor said, You've made your plans for Ace abundantly clear. What about me? Kriegsleiter turned in the doorway. I am glad you asked, Doctor. Firstly, you will attend tomorrow's ceremony and witness the death of someone you love? Care for, at least. Then, you remember my Sidrads, Doctor. Primitive time machines with a limited shelf life. An unkind but accurate description. After the ceremony, we shall require the location of your TARDIS. Once that is ours, we can reproduce it, conquer time as well as space. Out of the question, said the doctor indignantly. Oh, you will tell us, Doctor. We shall take your mind to pieces like a watch. Of course, one or two of the parts may get broken in the process, but that really doesn't matter. It doesn't. Once I have wrested from it the secrets of the TARDIS, your mind will be of no further interest to me. But your body... Please, said the doctor, looking embarrassed. Ladies present. We are both Time Lords, Doctor. Our brains and our bodies are compatible. Regeneration therapy is far beyond the warlord scientists, but even they can manage a simple brain transplant. Kriegsleiter studied the doctor with detached clinical interest. To be honest, it isn't the body I would have chosen, but it's infinitely superior to the one I have. When all this is over, Doctor, I shall be you. And you, or whatever shattered gibbering remnant of you is left, will be me. Appropriate, don't you think? A crippled mind in a crippled body.